Alrighty, welcome to episode 209 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. In a first release outside North America, Tesla has launched a version of FSD supervised in China, which it has titled Autopilot for Urban Roads. Australian law firm JGA Sadler, backed by litigation funder Woodford on a no-win, no-fee basis, has launched legal proceedings against Tesla in the federal court. This class action, brought by head litigant Georgina Marie Hansen, has been stated as being centred around phantom braking, lack of purchased FSD feature implementation, and overstated range advertising. And that was this week's news. Indeed it was, and welcome to the program. And as is customary, if there is anyone who is new and is comfortable in doing so, please unmute and say hello.
Hello.
Hello, Christina. Welcome.
Yes, hello. Hi. I haven't got my car yet, but I thought I'd join in this as to be well prepared when my car finally arrives.
Oh, absolutely, and welcome. And which awesome Tesla did you order?
A Model 3.
Ah, fantastic. You're going to love it. Do you know how long it'll be before you're going to get your car, roughly?
March. No, it's going to be sometime
Oh,
in
okay.
March.
It's only next month, so that's
Yeah.
that's only a couple of weeks of sleeps, so it should be all good. But
I've got
welcome, and
I've got my charger installed in the house, so that's good. I've got the charger just waiting for the car to go with it.
I think there are many of us in the room, and hundreds of others that have done exactly that. You just want your car so badly, go, well, I'm going to get the charger installed at least, so I've got
Yeah.
something. But
Yep.
congratulations
Just,
on your impending delivery. And
just a big, by the way, Christina, what charger did you get?
Sorry, say that again.
What charger did you get installed?
I got a Tesla charger.
Oh, the wall connector. Nice.
Yeah, the wall connector. Yeah.
Yep. Way to go.
So very soon in the program, Christine, if you've got any questions whatsoever, please don't think that they're sort of dumb questions or whatever. There are no such things. All of us were newbies, some time ago, whether that's many years ago or just days ago. So please feel free to ask any questions you like. All right, I might try and go for a double. Is there anyone else who is new and would like to unmute and introduce themselves? Oh, perhaps maybe later on in the program. Alrighty, so obviously, we've got two pieces of news. One's pretty good, and potentially good for Australia in that obviously Tesla has, with the utmost adversity, effectively released pretty much full self-driving supervised in China. Although obviously it's named something slightly different, mainly for legal reasons and technical reasons or compliance reasons. But obviously Tesla did all the training in the US. It's not permitted in China for any of the car data gathered in China to leave China, and it's also not permitted by the US for Tesla to have training compute using proper training chips from, say, NVIDIA. They're not permitted to be exported or brought into China for any purpose. So Tesla has basically had to implement this using synthetic data gleaned from video that was publicly released, from sources in China of the interesting layouts of their roads. And by all accounts, the current videos that are out on X and other platforms is very positive. So that's a really good thing for us here too, because it gives us a lot of hope that, hopefully Tesla will be true to its word and implement full self-driving supervised in Australia as soon as it's legally possible to do that. The second piece of news that's not so fantastic is that for anyone that wants to sort of follow along at a later stage, if you just Google federal court search, and you can search on the federal court website, you can actually, and just look for the name Tesla, and you can find this case, which has its reference number there. And like I said in the news, it's a class action. I think they call it a representative proceeding, but it's basically a class action against Tesla. And like I said, it's obviously going to make a lot of news over the coming months and perhaps possibly a year or so before everything's resolved. And yeah, we'll just have to get the popcorn out and follow along. And like I said, the main three areas that they are litigating is the lack of FSD features for those who have bought FSD. I mean, obviously, hopefully that'll be something that'll be addressed fairly soon. There's phantom braking, which they describe as a safety issue. And then the third issue was, oh yes, the stated mileage or range of a Tesla. And I think one little thing to note there is if you look at any of the range figures stated on Tesla's website, and it's obvious to many of us who are experienced, it's almost impossible on a highway to actually achieve those distance metrics, which is completely understood by everyone. But the main point there is in Australia, Tesla is obliged to state the WLTP range, and that is a legislatively specified test regime or compliance regime that calculates the equivalent range. So it goes without saying, if you're on a chip seal road punching against a headwind, you have zero chance of getting the 4, 5, or 600 kilometers stated on the various models of Tesla. But, you know, I'm sure many of you who have driven a Tesla, if you're driving around Perth on a beautiful piece of tarmac on the freeway in some traffic doing perhaps between 80 and 100 kilometers per hour, you can get efficiency figures in the order of 120 watt hours per kilometer easily. And that would actually, well, it would surpass the stated range by more than 100 kilometers. So it's really a horses for courses thing. And without, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that leg of that challenge might be the weakest because basically Tesla is just complying with the industry standard mandated metrics, which it is obliged to put on every car, as by the way are fossil fuel powered vehicles. And everyone knows in those things, they never get the efficiency litres per 100k figure on the open road and, you know, in headwinds and all that sort of stuff. So anyway.
Exactly. Show me one ICE car that has the efficiency and consumption figures that are consistent with what's on the sticker. Show me one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
like you said, Harold, Tesla has no choice. It's mandated. It's only doing what has been prescribed to it by the regulations, which is to quote the WLTP standard, which is what all manufacturers of EVs are obliged to do in Australia. So in the US, they quote the EPA standard because that's the standard that's prescribed over there. So,
yep, exactly. So, yeah, it just is what it is. So, anyway, alrighty. There's obviously been lots of other pieces of news. I've got a couple of videos that I'll show a bit later on as the evening progresses. But has anyone got any opening questions or comments?
Just quickly, while you're on the range, that rumour about 95 kilowatt hour Model Y that Top Gear mentioned, which might potentially have a 500 mile, and that's an EPA range. So that would be 800 kilometres, which would be achievable, you would think, in most, you know, definitely most city situations. But yeah, that was a rumour on Top Gear, on Top Gear's YouTube channel. Just wondering if anyone's heard it anywhere else or if it's just Top Gear that trotting that rumour out.
Yeah, I certainly haven't. I've got to say, there's a tiny piece of me that says, oh, it could be plausible if Tesla were intent on producing a very fast performance variant of the Model Y, because one of the limiting factors of actually getting more kilowatts into out of the system, the actual main limiting factor isn't the two motors in the performance Model Y or Model 3 for that matter. It's actually the ability to pull the power out of the battery pack. And obviously you can pull more power out of a larger pack. So a 94 or 5 kilowatt hour pack would just be awesome. It really would be, and I'd definitely buy one. Line me up. I don't care how much it costs. I just want that range for selfish reasons, such as driving around Australia with crappy fast DC charger sites. But yeah, bring it on, Pete. I hope Top Gear haven't just sprouted a tenuous, clickbaity sort of headline grabbing sound grab. I really hope they haven't sort of done that. But who knows?
Yeah,
Perhaps there might be something
they're not,
special coming along.
hopefully they're not just trying to Osborne the current models. Hopefully that rumour's got some basis to it. But who knows? But yeah, if they did that to the Model Y performance, then you would think they would have to do that to the Highland performance. You can't have a Model Y be faster than a Model 3. So the Model Y does, like the current version, the original one does 0 to 100 in 3.7. I think the old Model 3 was 3.3. I think the new one's like 3.1 seconds in Australia. So yeah,
It'd be sub 3 seconds for sure if they did have the bigger battery. So
exactly.
look, fingers crossed. The only thing that also pollutes it a little bit is the battery packs are different. The battery packs that are fitted in Berlin, which is where Top Gear would have gotten their
Test drive.
refreshed Model Y for a test drive. Those battery packs are different. The chemistry is different. The cells are different from the Berlin produced cars than they are from Giga Shanghai. So and they're also different to the United States as well.
Yeah, I know in the US they use the Panasonic batteries, and that's why the Highlands are a little bit quicker in the US by zero point 0.1 or zero point 0.2 of a second. Do you know what they use in Berlin for batteries?
I think it's LG as well, and I think in Shanghai
LG.
it's
Okay.
is it CAT? I think it's CATL in Shanghai. So I think it's
Yeah.
LG in Berlin. So we've
Okay.
basically got three suppliers effectively. Well, basically.
I
So
think BYD is a supplier of some cells as well.
say
So
again.
they've got. I think BYD is a supplier of some cells as well, isn't it? So the yeah.
Not not sure, but that's certainly possible as well. But yeah, look, I hope it's not just a false rumor.
Mm.
Yeah, like I said, if they brought out a 95 kilowatt hour pack, I would definitely be a buyer of it for sure.
It'd be absolutely awesome for a country like Australia.
Absolutely,
For those
absolutely.
that need it, like most people wouldn't need it, but yeah, it'd just be a nice.
Well,
It'd just
actually,
be nice.
it would turn it into a great towing car. So it would really help. It
Absolutely.
would really assist in towing, and that's a non-trivial function of an EV these days,
Yep.
because naturally, as we go through the early adopter phase, the very early adopters to I forget what it's called, the early majority or whatever it's called, you the usage of EVs should more reflect broader community use, and obviously a lot of people use their motor cars for towing, whether it's trailers, caravans, boats, jet skis, whatever. So
Awesome.
so that would make a lot of sense for a longer range or a higher capacity Model Y, not just for higher absolute range while driving by itself, but also as a tow vehicle. That I think that would be that would actually be very legitimate reason for having a larger pack than you would otherwise normally need around town.
And and also for there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, look, I would buy a Tesla, but once every 6 weeks, I go to Adelaide or wherever, or Karratha or what have you. I desperately need that range, and sometimes I tow a small trailer, so it's just the current range is just not enough. But this would be awesome. So for that use case, it'd just be fantastic.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Mike, you've got your hand up patiently.
Yes, thanks, guys. Hello, everybody again. I remembered tonight, or rather my wife did again. I always forgetting. Yes, monsieur. So, Harold, you helped me out with the navigation a couple of weeks ago now, where I was on the freeway and you said the maps thinks it's a entry lane because they've changed the freeway. So we had the little update that came through a couple of days ago for me anyway, just a few bug fixes. I did notice the reversing, when you're reversing, the radio goes quieter, so that works nicely. But I also, while I was fishing around in there, turned on the beeping if you're over the speed limit that it thinks the road's at, which I'd had off since I got the car, because I usually pay attention, but I thought, I'll switch it on, see what it sounds like. Well, I live near Carrinup, and around the streets near us, there's two sections in, normal, what you call it, suburban streets, 50 kilometers an hour. The speed limit drops to 5 for about 100, not like 55. So I can see you nodding again. This is why I come here. You guys know this stuff. Where does this map come from? Now, I don't have the $10 a month. Is it Google Maps? No, anyway, it doesn't make any difference, does it? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's basically two aspects. There are two ways that the car understands the local speed limit.
Yep.
One is a mapping database, and I think that's where the cause of the problem is. So there's a glitch in the data, or there's it momentarily thinks it's on a different piece of mapped road than it actually is.
Yeah, sure.
So when you mention the 5 k's an hour, I can imagine that could be like a slip road. Well, not a slip road, but like a shopping centre piece of road or whatever, which is in the map. There's a classic example that happens is if you go south down Tonkin Highway near the Swan River. So you come from, let's say, Malaga or whatever, Ellenbrook end, and you're going southbound, and it's about a kilometre before you get to the Swan River Bridge. I think it's Beaufort Street or something like that. There's a bridge over it, and the speed limit, the car, now it'll feel like a phantom brake, but it's because the speed limit suddenly goes down to 50, so the car then reacts to slow down, but you'll actually see the speed limit automatically go back to 100 quite quickly within a space of say 20 meters, or 50, probably 30 meters. So there are little glitches in the system. There are no signs that could confuse it.
No.
So unfortunately, and look, Pete and I, we've often been asked, how much of our laps did we do on autopilot? And the correct answer is every single kilometre possible. But there were some places where the car would wrongly think it was, say, 60 kilometres an hour, or there were like roadworks whereby there was a 60 or a 40k an hour sign, but there was no sign resetting that at the end of the roadworks. So, yeah,
I get that.
Those little glitches,
I get that sort of like carrying up off ramps on the freeway. You've got a 70 and a 60, and it stuffs around there. And because I haven't had the beeper on, I haven't really noticed. But I don't know about you guys. Where the hell is a 5 kilometre an hour speed limit? And it's in 2 different locations. One's near Lake Gwelup, just for those who know the area. And one's up at the top coming off. It's literally 20 metres off Carrinup Road going down Gwelup Road towards the lake. I've never seen a 5 kilometre speed limit anywhere.
Well, there are on private roads. So on shopping centres, you see the 5s or 10s, depending. So, and like I said, it's probably more likely to be like literally a database glitch. And I think Tesla might use Open Maps as part of the mapping as well, or to actually get the data for speed. I'm not entirely certain, but clearly there's an error in that database. Now,
there's something funny going on around here,
yeah, but what we as individuals could do, I just don't know if there's a scope for us to say raise it as a ticket with Tesla service, because I just don't think Tesla have a direct link with that data, unfortunately.
See, like I have it. There's something funny. Pete helped me out when I first came on the first episode. In the charging stats, when I charge at Carrot Shops, which is 450 meters away, it thinks I'm at home. And
Yep.
you helped me out early on in the piece, Pete, back whenever it was, right? But if I'm at the other end of Carrot Shops, which is 700 meters away, not a problem. And so there's this issue of the car knows where it is. You can see it knows where it is. It knows I'm home, but the charging system, which gets its information from somewhere else, I'm guessing, thinks it's not there. And Pete, you probably know the ins and outs of all this. So there's a real issue with this, and I don't know how everybody else goes. For me, it's like what shall I say? It's just not good enough, actually.
For simplicity's sake, Tesla probably decides to draw a 100 or 200 meter circle around your address for the purpose of taking these charging stats, because it probably understands that you may park your car in different places. The GPS has also got varying accuracy depending on structures like buildings, high-rise buildings, if you're in a highly urbanized area, because of course it's got to write its software in general for all applications. So what it might do is it might play it safe. So if you're in like a CBD where actually GPS doesn't work anywhere near as well as people think it does, or as well as it appears to, because a lot of cars and systems actually cover up a lot of those errors by using inertial guidance and things like that. So for example, when you go through the tunnel, it will very accurately plot you along the tunnel. I assure you it's not through GPS signals. It's basically using inertial systems and your pulse counting of your wheels for your ABS system. So obviously Tesla, for the charging thing, for those stats, which are, let's face it, fairly unimportant, it's a minor thing, but interesting, then it's probably got a policy, it draws a 250 meter circle around your house or your address, and just decides anything that occurs within that region is deemed home for the purpose of that stat.
I mean, if it's thinking the road next to Lake Gwelup is part of Carrot, then
well, I'll put it this way. I've had a case, and it was back in 2023, where I was parked at the multi-story car park at Charlie Gardner's hospital, and my car was there for quite a few hours. When I came out, it actually showed the car in the about 3,000 kilometres to the southwest of Perth. It was closer to Antarctica than it was to Perth, and that actually took quite a while to resolve itself. So these little glitches can happen, and it's just like I said, it's the car generally knows precisely where it is. Like I said, the problem is the maps. Tesla does not do the mapping because it just hasn't got the resources to do that. That is provided by others. And I think I explained in a couple of programs ago that whereas the directions is done by TomTom, the actual visualization is done by Google. But I think there's also Open Maps, which is used for some data as well. So you have as many as 3 different databases, and if Tesla's unlucky and there's a glitch in speed, it as opposed to other vehicles that don't have these sort of features, the glitch will have to be processed because it doesn't know it's a glitch. And
so for those of you with FSD, then I mean, won't this impact on FSD, or doesn't it impact on FSD for those? Yeah, right. So I'll see Pete's nodding his head.
FSD is completely. Look, none of us really understand the capabilities of FSD because we've never had it in Australia.
Sure.
So, and it's got policies like, for example, in America, it tolerates going above the speed limit, which is obviously a big no-no in Australia, but in America, that's considered sort of normal behaviour. So, look, I guess that would have to be a TBA. We just don't know its behaviour. And I'd love to be the first person. I'd love to be the first person to report to us as anything that, hey, you know, my FSD went straight across Tonkin Highway and it was no problem, you know. So, Um, yeah, unfortunately, these little glitches do come along.
Harold, just thinking that because it seems to happen with some regularity in Mike's car specifically, do you think it might be worthwhile him putting in a service request just in case it's to do with GPS specifically or the algorithm specifically in his software? Or
Well, Mike, if you can just do a screen capture on Google Maps and just put it in the chat and just sort of, if you do it with what's it called? The snipping tool, if you've got that in Windows, and if you don't, just
I'm
type
on
in,
Macs, but yeah, I know what you mean.
okay, the equivalent, and just
Yeah,
pencil in with red marker or something, uh, just where your car glitches, then I'm
yes,
sure there'll be a few of us that'll be interested to drive that same path and
yes.
confirm whether our cars do the same thing. So
And just while I'm doing that, I'll talk. It's only like for maybe 50 meters. So normally you
exactly,
don't
no,
notice
that's
it
right. Yep,
if you haven't got the
yep,
beeper on because you're
yep.
looking at roundabouts and traffic and whatever else.
Like I
Just
said, there's
yeah,
a piece on Tonkin Highway near the Swan River which does exactly that.
right.
It dips down to 50 or 60 k's an
Oh
hour,
yeah, I'd see that
and
regularly, as I said, on a
and
variety of posts.
automatically heals itself within
Yeah.
about 30, 40 meters. It's very, very brief, and sometimes you have to sort of divert your eye very quickly to catch it to see why the car's doing that.
And,
Yeah.
and, and you know, amusingly, there's another one out right outside the front of the Tesla store in O'Connor. Every time I go past there, it drops down to 40 k's an hour, and I'm like, you just want to pull into Tesla, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what it wants to do. It wants to
Yeah,
go, oh, you want to go to Tesla? And
exactly.
that's precisely what it's doing, Richard. Of course it is.
you know,
Why
you know,
wouldn't it?
you know why I think that may be. I think it might be onto something actually, Richard, because so you know that the version of autopilot or FSD that we have in Australia has not been worked on by a human for like 6 years. It's been an abandoned, direction that the software started heading in, but it is still self-improving itself. And I've noticed on a road that I drive on fairly regularly, I've it has started improving and it has started doing things that I usually do on that road that necessarily you wouldn't necessarily do or a normal driver wouldn't do.
I
And
actually,
I'm pretty sure that
I think there was a speed restriction there at one point, and I think it's just continued to remember that just by coincidence. But hey, look, I might be wrong. If it's a policy, that's hilarious.
because what I was going to say, if a lot of drivers who are driving on autopilot, or even if they're not driving, and especially recently, they see a Tesla dealership, they're like, "Oh, what? There's a Tesla dealership," so they naturally slow down.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Software.
No, it does it in the S and the X. So the S is just on AP1, so nothing to do. Yeah,
Richard, oh, okay, sorry, because I was going to say the other thing too is on your X, it'll probably show curvature assist, and that
yeah.
can cause,
Cool.
because it's a crest, and because it's a crest, you get artificial speed slowing down.
Oh yeah.
Because it's being a little bit more cautious, probably more to do with the NHTSA requirements and other things in the States
Yeah.
that then foists those features, so-called features, onto us. Although the AP1, your old Model S, I don't think the car actually sees the video stream that Mobile Eye produces in that sense, so it probably doesn't have curvature assist, but the X would.
No, that does. Yeah, curvature assist never comes up on the S, but it
Yeah,
definitely does on the S. Really
yeah.
annoying.
And when you see curvature assist, that's just code for I'm going to slow down now. That's what it basically does all over the
Yeah.
place. So that's
Yeah.
that's another. Now, obviously, Mike, that's got nothing to do with your problem of it beeping at you for going too fast, but that is another explanation of why the car will slow down, not because the speed limit, not because it thinks the speed limit's changed, but because it's doing this curvature assist, which is being a little bit more
Yes.
cautious over
Yeah.
a crest. But actually,
And
Mike, you
that's
got your hand up again.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask a question without rudely interrupting you. So I tried to drop the PNG screenshot in the chat and it said couldn't send. So I'm just saving it as a JPEG. That'll probably be okay, will it?
Probably,
should
yeah. I
be.
think most people have sent pictures successfully by those means.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just a second.
Mike, just while you're there, just a good
Yeah.
tip, if you do ever intend to use this in a service request, just try and take note of the time and date when it happens as well. So it always helps to quite a lot if you have a timestamp of when the issue occurred, because then they can go back to the logs in your car and try and either reproduce the error or it just provides more information to them.
I think I just go, I'm just trying to put the file on now. So I just go click on that little icon there and it goes, go to your desktop. And I pick that one and this is now a JPEG and then click OK there. And it's, my camera's in the way. It's whirring away. No, it won't. Why won't it send it? I'm in the browser. Is there a restriction on sending pictures via browser or is there a size limit?
Yeah, well, I don't know is the short answer. I know lots of other people have sent it, but I don't know if they've got Macs.
Harold, I can guide you. Can you bring up maps and just go to Lake Gwelup?
Let's have a look.
If that's easy enough. If not, no worries. But in terms of timestamps, Pete, while Harold's doing that, I went up and down this road about 5 times a day, and it thinks it's 5 kilometers an hour every time.
Right, every time. So it's not an intermittent issue.
No.
You can reliably reproduce it every time.
Okay, so where is it, Mark?
Yeah, so if you look at the Lake Gwelup to the left, you've got that little, so stop there where your mouse is. So it goes from there round that corner. That's the second patch, depending on which way you're going. And then I go up Finity. So it stops at the junction of Finity and Gwelup Street. But it also occurs where it says Lake Gwelup Regional Open Space. From there, about 50 meters up to that next roundabout.
Which is here.
So you can't see my mouse, can you? No. So
no,
you see where that.
Should be looking at my map. So so we're
here.
Yeah,
I am. No. So go over to the shrink out again. So see where it says Carrying Up Recreation Reserve on the left of Lake Gwelup.
Oh, sorry, that's not what you said. You said Lake Gwelup Regional Open Space. Okay,
yeah, it's the other one on the other side of the lake.
Recreation Reserve. Yeah.
So just to the right of the green patch, on the screen, you can see a little like car park area. So it does it through there up to the roundabout.
Yep.
Then for like 20 meters after the roundabout going north, it goes back to 50. Then just before the bend, it goes back to 5. And then when it reaches the T junction with Finity, it goes back to 50. Yep. And at the other end of Gwelup Street, where it's coming off Carrying Up Road, for about 20 meters, you were nearly there. So there, just where your mouse is, just going down Gwelup Street from Carrying Up Road, for about 20 or 30 meters, it thinks it's 5 there as well.
You mean on Carrying Up Road? Going east?
So down, if you were coming from the shops, turn left down Gwelup Street, just north of where your mouse is. See there? So just there, just where you're flicking the mouse now, it thinks it's 5 there as well.
Yeah.
And I've never noticed it before because I haven't had the beeper on and I'm not paying attention to my speed there because I'm turning corners and stuff.
I'll take my car for a spin tomorrow and have a suss and see if I can repeat the same.
Don't go out of your way. I was just thought it might be mapping.
Mike, does your car have enhanced autopilot?
Yes.
So now I've forgotten. Does your enhanced autopilot take notice? No, it doesn't take notice of traffic lights, does it? It doesn't stop automatically at traffic lights. No,
it won't stop. It sees them about half the time.
Yeah, but it does not. It doesn't stop for them automatically. No. Okay, no, that's fine. Cool. No worries. I'll have a look. And
don't go anyway. I was just interested.
Oh no, it's fine. I've got nothing better to do than drive around anyway. So
Come and visit the
That's-
Carrot. I don't know if you're north of the river. You can come and visit the Carrot shops and mooch around.
Oh no, I've got COVID, so I'll be strictly in my car
Oh, really?
not going out in public. But
Stand all right.
oh yeah, it's just got to soldier on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have a suss and just see if my
Yeah.
car repeats the same sort of thing.
Will you
Which
be
it,
coming from the freeway?
yeah, naturally, yeah, of course. But
Okay,
I'm
so
familiar
turn.
with the area. That's totally fine.
Okay,
I
so
know
left-hand
exactly.
can up, right up Huntress, and as you go past the park,
Yep.
just
Yeah,
past.
yeah. No, I know the area well.
Yeah, yeah, right. Okay.
I spent, I don't know, 15 years of my life in Hammersley and in the
Yeah.
northern suburbs before I moved south. So no, it's all good. Now,
Yeah.
actually, someone in the chat, I think it was David, mentioned that he seems to have lost access to charge stats. I've just had a look at mine, and mine are definitely there. So, in fact, throughout the year, I've actually got mine as well. So I don't know what's with yours, David. If you've got no data, but I presume you're you are logged into your Tesla app with your Tesla account. In other words, you can see all the other details of your car, just not the charging stats, which is interesting because I'm not certain that you can actually delete them or anything, clear them. So if that's a concern, you might just want to lodge a ticket with Tesla uh, on your app as a service request. Because if everyone else looks in their Tesla apps, you've probably all got charging stats.
I've checked mine, and yeah, I can see my charging stats on all my cars, so it might be specific to you. Yeah, and
Yeah,
Paul,
mine's okay as well.
Yeah, and mine distressingly claims I spent $10,000 on energy because that's
Ooh.
19,000. Oops, sorry. Uh, 19,886 kilowatt hours.
Ooh.
But
but
and
that's
that's in the last 12 months.
over the 1,000,000 kilometres that you've done in the last 12 months.
Not quite a million, not quite, but approaching
Yeah.
a fifth of a million a fifth of a million. Not well, not yeah, whatever.
It only depends to how many spaces you round it to.
That's true too. Yes, exactly. Alrighty. We got any other questions or comments? Especially anyone who's new, and even Christina, if you've got any questions on your awesome car that's going to be arriving soon, given you've already got your wall connector. So yeah, any questions, especially from people that are new, because after all, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, Harold, it's Mark here. Sorry, just to butt in. I wasn't able to put my hand up. Just one quick one. We've got the same problem, that 5 kilometre an hour problem in Coolbellup as well, going northbound on Coolbellup Avenue near the shopping centre. So I'll report that. But I remember you were saying just at the start of the session tonight about when you go through roadworks and you head out the other side, and they annoyingly haven't put a return to the normal speed limit. So the hack that I have when I'm in that situation is I just go across to the menu into autopilot, and then on the set speed button, I basically just choose current speed, get up to the speed limit, and hit it until the next time I've passed the next 100 kilometre or 110 kilometre sign, and then I'll whack it back onto speed limit again. Seems to work fine on the fly, no problems there at all. I've done it a few times now.
It definitely works in urban areas, so in Perth it works. The frustration is when you're out in the bush, the car sort of behaves the opposite to what you'd think. So in an urban area, if the car sees a speed limit that's slower, it will not automatically slow down. Generally, if it's a minor road or a standard road, it will on say Tonkin Highway and a couple of other sort of certain locations, but it's pretty rare. But it will let you go faster than the speed limit, like vastly faster. If it thinks the speed limit is 5 kilometers an hour, it'll let you do 105. If you go into the bush on, say, one of the major highways well outside of Perth or any other built up city, it militantly will not let you go faster than 10 kilometers an hour over the speed limit that it thinks exists in that area. So that's why Pete and I, we've probably only spent about 95% of the time on autopilot, because the other 5% was, we had a choice. If it has the incorrect speed limit and it's invariably in the bush, then you have a choice of either using your foot to override the throttle effectively while on autopilot and manually adjust your speed with your throttle, or you click it off autopilot and you use traffic aware cruise control, and that will let you actually so-called speed contrary to the speed limit
Of
that
course.
exists
Yeah,
there.
it's the tack. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
just a safety thing. If you override it with your foot on the accelerator, the autopilot won't brake as it will do otherwise, because you've obviously overridden it by having
Correct.
foot on the
that's
accelerator.
that's correct. So it can be a bit frustrating, but what the solution that you've come up with is great, but it's limited to urban areas. That solution won't work
In-
in the bush.
Yeah, it just means that you've got to drive until the next 100K sign, or manually
Yeah,
steer it.
I
Sorry.
had to do that. Yeah, and
And
Pete and
Mark,
I,
I can, I can confirm that, because that lap that I did with Harold, I was actually meeting Harold at Barclay Homestead in Queensland. Is that Queensland? Northern Territory. Around there somewhere.
territory.
Northern Territory, yeah. Near there, it was the exact same thing. There was roadworks down to 40k an hour, and they never said end of roadworks. They never had the new speed limit sign on, and it just wouldn't go faster than 50 kilometres an hour. And I can confirm that I had it on current speed. So I didn't try going to speed limit and then back to current speed, but I did have it on current speed when that happened.
Yeah, so it's limited to tack only. But hey, by the same token, it's probably better than having nothing at all, I guess.
Yeah, true. But it's just, unfortunately, these glitches do happen. And
Yeah.
it's also a reason, in some cases, if you go and navigate to a town in the southwest or other places for that matter, you'll sometimes be thrown up a weird sort of navigation route that you think that's kind of weird. You'd expect it to have taken you on a highway or something like that. And sometimes those things can happen when the online maps or the data indicates that a road might be closed, even though it's not. And I mean, I've seen that many times on Google Maps and also Apple Maps, and sometimes it's one or the other, whereby I'll just be cruising around Australia, as in on my computer, just checking out distances and all that sort of stuff. And it'll be quite frustrating because you'll go, why is it saying it's 600 and something kilometers between Three Ways and Camberwell? And it's because it's actually taking you on a diversion, because for whatever reason, Apple Maps or often Google Maps will think a road is closed. The other thing that can happen in your car is it'll wrongly think the speed limit is vastly less in a certain stretch of road when it's not, and therefore route you via a slower road because it thinks that it's going to be faster. So
Yeah.
sometimes these errors, when they pop in or out, can be a little bit annoying if you're not if you don't make yourself aware of which way the
Yeah,
car's taking.
if you're not on top of it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. Thank you very much, guys.
No worries. Alrighty. Any other questions, and especially any sort of novice questions would be really good. Or any comments.
Hi, it's John Laming here. How's it
John,
going?
well, good, thanks.
Yeah, just back to your earlier comment about batteries, and there's a YouTuber goes by the name of John EE. He seems to be getting a lot of information from Shanghai. He seems to be of Asian, but also speaks English quite well. But his comment was that a few weeks back there was an announcement that LG have got a new contract for a different NMC battery, which offers another 5% capacity or
Yep.
perhaps density. So
Yes.
that was something that he mentioned that might be coming available
Yeah, it's
mid-year
doped.
this year.
I think it's doped with magnesium. So I think it's an no. Yeah, MNMC. So it's a magnesium, nickel, manganese, cobalt battery. So, but like you say, if it's only say 5% or even 10%, then that wouldn't be enough to get the Model Y battery from the 74 kilowatt hours usable up to 95, or
Yeah,
even
no,
from 78
it's not.
total up to 95. That's a stretch. So, but look, it's possible, and they might actually slightly alter the form factor, or you know, we don't. I'm not sure. Did you see any data on whether those LG cells are pouch cells or cylindrical, or because most of
No,
Tesla's ones are cylindrical, I think, except for the LFP cells, which might be pouches from Shanghai.
yeah, right. No, I didn't get any other info. If I can just squeeze in a question though,
Yeah, of course.
I had queried my local Bob Jane about their opinion on the mileage in comparison between a 19-inch and 20-inch wheel. And so, in terms of not fuel economy as such, but more the wear and tear as to how many thousand kilometers you would get out of the different size wheels. And this guy was in particular of the opinion that the 20-inch would be wear a lot faster. I was just wondering
Yep.
if people had experience with that.
That would be true, but it's not because of the size. It would be because of the hardness of the tire compound. So the 20-inch lower profile wheel tires, sorry, are inherently more for performance vehicles. So they would be prized for grip, and that grip usually comes at the expense of the hardness of the tire compounds and the stickiness of the tires, and that's where you get the reduction in longevity. It's got nothing to do with the profile per se. It's just the tire compounds. It's just that the lower profile tires naturally have softer compounds for more stickiness that's expected of tires of that kind of size.
Okay, fair enough.
And then you get to efficiency, it makes an absolutely huge difference. So my 2023 Performance Model Y came standard. There was no option, but came standard with the Uber turbines. And Rob Dean and I did a very accurate side-by-side comparison, simultaneous comparison of two identical Performance Model Ys, one with the stock 20-inch Uber turbines and one with the 18 or 19-inch, sorry, maybe they were 21-inch Uber turbines, and they were 19-inch standard aero wheels. And the difference was, I think it was 8 or 9% or 10%. It was a stark difference, all other things being equal. And this was like a double, not a blind test, but it was, we did a test over a couple of different days, and the results were so accurate or consistent that I think it was Rob Dean got exactly the same watt hours per kilometre over two different versions of that test over the same, and that was basically between the Foothills and Williams supercharger. So it's about just the difference in the rims, or the profile of the rims, or the format of the rims, made about a 10% difference in efficiency.
And actually, Harold, myself and Rob and Robin did exactly the same things in our both our 2015 Model S's. Geez, back in 2017, where I've got the 21-inch Super turbines, they had the 19-inch, and it was bang on about 10%. So even between both vehicles, it's about the same.
Yep. Makes a big difference, which is why my performance car has got those 19-inch standard aero wheels, because when you're trying to cover 450 k's, getting back to this, this class action, I think my car has stated high 400 k's. It was, or maybe touching 500k range. But when you're punching into a headwind on a crappy chip seal road that's not tarmac, it's just tar sprayed onto gravel with stones basically pressed into them, or even just sitting on the top, you could never get the efficiency that's stated. So when you're getting that sort of, when you're doing those extreme kilometers in the middle of nowhere, 10% makes a huge difference. It's an extra 40, 50 Ks, which does make all the difference. Alrighty, Christian, you got your hand up.
Hi guys, good to see you. Good to hear you guys. A lot of really good things to discuss about it. Banging on about tires. I just recently switched. So I have the 19-inch tires on my Model 3, and I had the previous one, the Hankook S3 Evo, on their sleeve, Ventus sleeve or something like this on there. And now I have the newer ones that are also on the Highland, the Ion, Hankook Ions. And I would say, actually, for me, I don't have enough data yet, but I think the consumption is slightly worse. However, and that is much more important for me, I find the stiffness, the ride comfort, and the noise inside is actually substantially improved. And my wife has sort of noticed the same thing, and I have another person that basically has the same subjective feeling. Just want to point this out, that there was this discussion that the Highland, the majority of the improvement in consumption is from the tire compounds. At least on the older model, I cannot confirm that, right? Okay, and then coming back to, because you guys were discussing battery chemistry, battery capacity, I think one thing that we should also discuss or just mention is that obviously, this should be obvious to everyone, is that the batteries will lose some capacity. And so while, you might think that this range that you're going to get is sort of, you should consider sort of 10% less regardless. And I just posted in the chat for anyone interested, I'm running TeslaMate, which is sort of a little server that basically just keeps track of the data that you produce. And so you can chart all kinds of different things. Some of you probably do the same. And I just want to show like how nicely sort of, you can see like there's some degradation that I have, but you can also see since about sort of 35,000, it's sort of leveling off. This is also shown in a bunch of other graphs. It's nothing new, but it just shows you that you should sort of expect, in the first 2 years, and others have stated that too, I'm not saying anything new, but this is like real world data from my Model 3, that you sort of, it's going to drop, and it's nothing unexpected. This is normal. And then it's just sort of, it just sort of finds its groove. Yeah, just wanted to state that.
The majority of degradation occurs early on, and it's sort of, I think it's I forget how you describe that graph, but it's like logarithmic, I think. It does taper off.
Yeah.
And I mean, my car's done 170,000 Ks in the 2 years that I've had it, just under 2 years, and it's lost about 10%, and that's fine. That's because after all, after 170,000 Ks, that's 11 years of average West Australian car use. So no one can be upset about, 11 years losing 10%, because I guarantee you, in 170,000 kilometers of a petrol car's life, a petrol car will be getting vastly less range than 90% of its stated range per fuel tank, for sure.
I totally agree with that. This is also something that, but it's just something that needs to be sort of considered when you pick your battery size, and you sort of, if you are considering keeping the car for a longer period of time, you're not leasing or something like this. And so this is something that you will have to deal with if you're not considering like switching it out after 3-4 years or something like this. And as you said, like it's actually a pretty decent thing, right? That it can do that.
Yeah, but the thing to highlight too is on the assumption that there are well-spaced, closely spaced, reliable fast DC chargers along the routes you want to undertake, then actually, for example, probably one of the best value for money Teslas would be either well, putting aside the brand new Model Y, because at the moment there is obviously a price penalty because it's the launch edition. But actually, that was another piece of news that I didn't really put in. I think that might have actually happened last week as well, possibly, or late last week, was that in Europe they've actually stopped the launch edition. Well, they haven't stopped it. You can still buy launch edition Model Ys, but they've now gone to the standard Model Ys that are non-launch edition. So they're actually cheaper, and that'll probably occur in Australia as well. But having said that, the standard range version of the Model 3 and the Model Y represent very good value. And on the assumption that you've got well-spaced, reliable, fast DC chargers, then the absolute capacity of your battery is much, much less important. So I can tell you from my 8 laps around Australia, as soon as I hit the eastern seaboard and got onto superchargers, I never looked at my state of charge. I never looked at my efficiency. I didn't care. I just plotted my route, and the car would just bounce me along each supercharger and tell me how many minutes I'd spend at each one. And I really did not care. Whereas I didn't care what speed I was doing as long as it was the speed limit. Going into the desolate areas, charging areas of Australia, then it's all about maximum range, maximum capacity, and all the mental calculations I then had to make sure I'd make it from one charger to the next without wasting too much time. So, which is important when you've got slow charging. When it's fast and it's well spaced and ubiquitous, then none of those metrics matter. So for example, if you get the standard range model, well, let's call it Model Y for now, even the old version. Let's say the standard range has a indicative mileage, a range of about 380 kilometers. The long range, when at 100%, will have a indicative range of say 450-ish, something like that, 460 kilometers. And you go, well, that's a big difference. The thing is, as Tesla recommends, on the longer range versions, which have the nickel manganese cobalt chemistry, they're the ones when you see on the charge capacity setting, when you charge your car, it'll have little tick marks after the 50%, and it'll say daily under those tick marks, and then at the 80% mark, it'll say trip. So if it's higher than 80%, it'll say trip. That's because Tesla recommends that on those cars, the long-range cars, on a daily basis, you charge to 80%. Now, if you look at the 80% range on a long-range car and the 100% range on a standard range car, they're very similar. So those two cars, even though one's got a longer range, bigger battery, as a daily driver, if you treat them as Tesla recommends, you effectively on a daily basis get the same range. And it only matters for those cases where you need the longer range, or you're towing something, but you need the longer range on a long road trip. But again, the need for that longer range on long road trips will abate when the WAV network properly works everywhere and is reliable, and there are other charges around as well. So that's just a little to sort of take. But look, because I'm a particular kind of idiot that does lots of long road trips. Yeah, just give me more range and I'll take it, because that's what I need for my purpose. But
I think it's really to highlight the purpose, just to make sure that everyone sort of considers this for anything that you're saying. You don't want, if you're not considering towing, if you're not like considering going sort of way far distances, or let's say like a bit more remotely where basically the chargers are still a bit more stretched out, then yeah, that's absolutely no difference. But I have to say, I'm so happy that I bought the long range Model 3 because
Yep.
with the family having a roof box on it, on like also, or putting something at the tow bar, that range hit is substantial. And I have to say that would have been a couple times really uncomfortable with just a 60 kilowatt hour battery instead of the 75 or 78, which was originally. So just be mindful about these things, and it's all possible, but like there are these use case scenarios where like it makes sense to actually step up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, for sure. Cool. Very good. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question. You mentioned earlier that the launch edition in Europe has, at least on the rear-wheel drive, is no longer available. Do you remember whether the launch edition of the rear-wheel drive was faster than the regular non-launch edition now? Similar to the long range, you know how the long range speed boost? Do you know if...
To be honest, from vague memory, let me bring up Tesla's website. So we'll see what it says. Oh. Oh, okay. So if we go into order now, the range of a rear wheel drive is, sorry, the 0 to 100 of the rear wheel drive is 5.9. I thought it was 6 point,
Yeah.
6 point something in the previous version.
Yeah, so it is.
It was, it is, like
If we
half
go
a
into
second fast.
inventory, yeah, if we go into inventory and we just find there probably won't be a standard range.
Yeah, down the bottom.
Is it down the bottom, is it?
Yeah, the old wire to the new
Yeah.
wire has gone from 6.9 to 5.9, and
Okay,
the and the all-wheel drive with the
6
boost is 4.3, but without the acceleration boost, it's 4.8.
Right.
Yeah, half a second.
So,
But
so
the
yeah,
question was though, just because we know the long range is faster because you effectively get the speed boost included in the launch edition. We know the new Model Y rear-wheel drive launch edition is a second faster than the original Model Y, 6.9 to 5.9 seconds. What I'm interested to know is if there's a difference between the launch edition of the rear-wheel drive and the non-launch edition of the new Model Y rear-wheel drive.
okay. So if we go to
Effectively, there was a speed boost, applicable to the rear-wheel drive.
Okay, so let's go to the Irish website, whereby they're saying that the rear-wheel drive, this is the standard non-launch edition rear-wheel drive, is saying 5.9, and in Australia, our launch edition rear-wheel drive says 5.9, so it's the same peak.
Same, yeah. Okay, gotcha.
And then they've got the long range all-wheel drive is 4.8, and the launch is 4.3. So there's your acceleration boost. And then they've actually uniquely got a long range rear wheel drive, and it is 5.6 compared to 5.9. So that's probably more to do with the higher battery voltage getting the extra performance because you've only got one motor. So that's probably more to do with a higher voltage being fed to that motor so it can wring out a little bit more performance.
Did you notice the range? 622.
Oh, yes, now, frustratingly, yeah, and I actually compared the ranges because it's WLTP, and the ranges are different between Ireland and Australia. But that gets back to the fact that in Berlin they are LG Chem batteries, and in Shanghai they are, I think, CATL, and in the States, they're Panasonic, and they have subtle differences between capacity. So I think you actually get slightly more battery capacity in the Berlin-built Model Ys than you do in the Shanghai ones. So there's a slight difference. And that difference is also reflected in the Highland performance cars, whereby a European Highland Performance, Model 3 Performance, is slightly faster than one you can buy in Australia, which comes from Shanghai. So unfortunately, you can't just go international and compare range because there's different battery capacities, subtly different, but similar. But at least the speed is sort of similar. So Pete, yeah, so eventually, hopefully, in Australia, we will be offered the 4 different versions, which will be the launch. Oh, sorry, hopefully there'll be 5 because there'll be also the performance. But in Europe, uniquely, you do have a long-range rear-wheel drive, which is really aimed at fleets. This is for fleet cars.
Yep.
Because you cannot get a long-range rear-wheel drive only in Australia at all.
It's never been an option here, has it?
No. No, never has. You've always gone standard range rear-wheel drive, long-range all-wheel drive, and then performance all-wheel drive. And that have been the 3 options. Yeah, basically, yes. Yeah, that they are the options. Although actually in Model S, the old Model S's, the newer old Model S's, you could get a 60 kilowatt hour software limited 75 pack as a rear wheel drive. You could get a 75 kilowatt hour rear wheel drive. You could also get a 75 kilowatt hour all wheel drive, and then the 100 kilowatt hour all wheel drive for the long range. So it was a little bit more fragmented.
And you could have the 75D, or you could have the P75D.
That's what I mean. So the D was the dual, that was the all wheel drive. And then the 75 straight was just the rear wheel drive. And then they actually had a 60, which was a software limited 75 pack, which was just slightly cheaper for no real reason. And then you just...
And then a 100D and a P100D as well, weren't they?
That's right. Yep, exactly. Alrighty. Any other questions?
I wonder with the launch edition, how they got the indicator store. I wonder if they're going to bring that back for the Model 3 sort of stuff.
I was just going to say, this is rumours. So the rumours were going this week saying yes. Middle of the year, possibly. Depends when they're going to refresh the 3.
Yeah. Because that'd be good with the performance.
And it's pretty obvious because Tesla has couched this as listening to their customers. Yes. And clearly Model Y customers have similar needs to Model 3 customers. So Tesla just simply can't not offer the stalk to the Model 3 fairly quickly. And I dare say probably to the other users of Model X and Model S as well.
But they have justified it along what Elon used to always say is if you're not having to add 10% back, you're not deleting enough. So Lars mentioned that on, was it Jay Leno's show? So look, that's credible, but yeah,
I'd hope.
Yeah, look, it'd just be cool if they had both options with no additional amount. I know it would cost Tesla more, and that's not what they're about, but it would be good if they had both options and see who chooses what. And it'd be really good if you had if you do it retrospectively. So if you could, and you'd have to pay for that obviously, but if you could try it out without the stock, and then if it didn't work for you, you could then put the stock on for an extra $300 or something. So that would be really interesting to see.
Tesla Two things on that one. Sorry.
Yeah, go, Mark.
Just quickly on that, two things. First one was when Lars was talking to Ride the White Lightning. Well, I've forgotten his name,
Ryan
but the lad
McCaffrey.
on there, that's it. Was talking to him. He said they're thinking about putting it back on the 3, or he insinuated he might be thinking that, but they wouldn't be on the Cybertruck because of the drive-by-wire.
Yes,
And
because
they're on about, yeah,
because the Cybertruck lock to lock is only
lock.
270 degrees.
Precisely.
So you just don't
So
need. You're never really far off your buttons anyway once you're used to it.
Yeah.
But you know, my middle kid, he's got a Model 3 Highland, and he's openly said he just does not indicate out of roundabouts. He does not bother, and I can understand it. I mean, I haven't driven it much. Actually, I don't think I've driven it at all. But I fully understand in that mode, notwithstanding, Pete, that you've come up with a solution, which is when you're upside down, you just use the outer button, I think. Is that what you said? Something like that. And that becomes the correct button.
Yes. So
yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, I don't think us humans, like, and I do get the Elon Musk's mantra, he's almost implying, although I hope they don't actually do this, and I don't really think they do, just start pulling stuff out until it breaks, and then you've got to put something back, and then if the ratio is about 10-1, then that's a good thing. Really, I dare say you should do that in a targeted sense. So here's a classic example, because not everything that Tesla does is great, and you know, I think something that they did that was very seriously wrong, without wanting to over dramatize it, is remove ultrasonics on the front of the cars and not replace it with a camera.
I agree with that.
You know, you've seen that the new Model Y very wisely and urgently has got a camera on the bumper, because that is what is essential to stop people from running over toddlers. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you know, that's just one of those cases of, yes, you can delete ultrasonics, but you've got to have something else there in its place, like you do in the back, because in the back you do have a camera that's a fisheye camera and can optically see problems that, in fact, the ultrasonics can't always detect. So that was, deleting the ultrasonics in the back was not an issue, but deleting it from the front without the substitution of the camera, bearing in mind the interesting thing on the Highland Model 3s is there used to be 3 front-facing cameras in the above the on your windscreen. There are now actually only 2, because one is well, it's not blacked out, it's just got a piece of plastic instead of the camera. And obviously that camera should be at the front. So clearly the Highland will come out with a version soon that will have a camera as well.
One last thing as well. Sorry, just a quick one, Pete. If you look on Sexy Buttons, they are actually developing, and it's out very shortly, replacement the stalks that can be glued on and then used as part of Sexy Buttons. So you can actually put your stalks on if you do want them, either of them.
Yep.
You can pre-order it now. Pre-order now.
And Tesla, there's no doubt that Tesla will probably, in the fullness of time, offer a retrofit upgrade to, say, a Highland Model 3 to have stalks. There will be a cost, and it won't be dirt cheap, but clearly they'll be able to break into that loom, because there'll be a split in the loom. There'll be connectors, and they'll be able to put in effectively like a double adapter or a Y connector, which then goes to a stalk, which all it has to do is go in parallel with those 2 buttons. So the buttons will stay, I'm certain, will stay on the steering wheel, but you'll be able to retrofit a stalk in the fullness of time. And in fact, I'm sure someone like Hanshow or others would probably be scheming on something like that as well, because it wouldn't be difficult.
Just on that front camera, though, it's not just the toddlers, which is probably the most important part of that, but also when you're on the freeway, the ultrasonics, and I learned this in an actual situation. What the ultrasonics used to do is bounce the beam underneath the car in front of you to pick up the next car. So not the car in front of you, but the car in front of that car. And
Yeah,
when that car started,
that was radar.
radar.
No, sorry, that's another step. That's another step backwards. That was radar.
radar. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Although-
radar.
Although radar is coming back, it is back in the Model S.
It's a different.
It's different. Or is it Cybertruck? Oh, I can't remember now. That Tesla have patented a high definition radar, which they were considering on using, because their point was, if it's low definition and it's kind of unreliable, you're just adding up errors, and the problem is, if you don't see something but your radar does, well, then you've got to what do you do? Does the radar win? In which case you're just doubling up errors.
And sensing just becomes a nightmare. So, what that radar used to do is bounce the beam underneath the car in front of you to pick up the next car.
Yep.
And when they got rid of radar, and they didn't replace it with a camera, they said, well, there'll always be one of the other cameras, either the 3 that you had at the front, I know it's 2 now, but at the time 3, or the other 2 B-pillar cameras would see, would have an angle to see another car in front of it, the car in front of that as well. But, if you have a truck or what have you, that starts to, become a harder argument. Whereas if you have a camera down low, you should be able to see underneath the car in front of you to see the wheels in front of that car. And like I said, that happened to me on the Mitchell Freeway. I was driving along, all of a sudden the car just locked up, and I was ready to override it with the, accelerator, thinking it's, a really bad case of phantom braking. But actually it was not the car in front of me, but the car in front of that had smoke going up everywhere because it locked its brakes up. So it definitely saved me in that situation. So not just toddlers, which is a big, big thing, but also in that situation too.
May I comment, guys, on that?
Yes, Mike.
So mine's the 2022, and I don't use the ultrasonics at all because I find them useless because I look at the screen when I'm going forward or backwards, and you just get those funny little curves, which doesn't really tell me anything. Whereas the vision gives you that, what do we call it? The grey ghosts around everything. And I find that really good. I just don't use the ultrasonics at all because that's just my experience. It's just interesting. I get the toddlers and all that. Yeah, really low curves, nothing picks those up. Well, the vision sort of picks it up if you come into it. I've only had one situation where he didn't pick it up, but...
The vision knows about it because I'm not sure if it was Elon or one of the other Tesla staff who said that we have vision with memory. So, you could argue, let's say there's a toddler crawling across and then it's obstructed. Well, we have memory to know that, the toddler didn't just disappear. He's probably going to come out the other end. But then you could make the argument, well, what if you've parked the car behind a garage, like a roller door, and there was no toddlers around, and now while the roller door is closed, the toddler crawls in front of you, and then the roller door opens, and then you start driving forward while the toddler's right in front of you still.
Oh, yeah.
And too close to the car for the camera to see it. So whether you have memory or not, in that situation, clear that you would need a camera in the low mounted camera in the front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a classic situation that I took a photo in Kalbarri whereby the car was facing into the sun. And in fact, I'm going to grab it and then post it up. But basically there was a concrete block on the driveway because I deliberately put it there. And because of the optical situation of what the camera could see, my car was fully prepared for me to drive forwards into that concrete block because Tesla Vision had no sense that that was there, whereas the ultrasonics obviously would. But again, you could have a fairly high curb but not hugely high, which you could bind up, and ultrasonics won't see that either because they're throwing in an outwards straight direction rather than spraying downwards. So there are limitations of all the systems, but it's just one of those things. Alrighty. Any other questions or comments before we might throw to a little video that Tesla did?
Rumor about the small Tesla coming in.
Oh yes.
They're getting a bit stronger now.
Well, they've been confirmed by Lars, basically, and the good thing was he reassured Ryan McCaffrey that even though it's smaller and cheaper, it will not be a lesser car. You won't have to put up with a crappy sort of Tesla. And I think it was something like 15% smaller. I think he might have said that, and a bit lighter, but not a inferior version, or not a notably inferior version, which is pretty critical. And that's in their summer, which is, well, let's face it, where I think our summer's almost finished, so we're into autumn. They'll be getting into spring, I guess next month, and
mid-year.
Their summer's not very far away. We only got about 3 or 4 months to wait for a reveal of that more affordable car, or cars actually.
Time to chuck out the Mazda 3.
It'll be interesting to see what the range is like on the Model 2 or whatever it's going to be called. But look, if Tesla's consistent with how it upgraded, how it released the 3 and the Y, the 3 and Y, both range-wise, both feature-wise, went behind the S and X. Not enough to justify the price difference. The Model 2 might be not that far behind the 3 and Y, but it might be 3 or 4 years before we see it in Australia. So that's the other issue. But speaking of Ryan McCaffrey and S and X, Lars also mentioned that the S and X might get some love towards the end of the year. So it'd be interesting if he gets steer-by-wire, in which case more of a chance comes to Australia.
And do you know, Pete, as well, like I listened to that interview and I've seen all the media channels saying, new refresh S and X come out this year. No, that's not what he said. What I heard him say is, we're going to turn our design attention to it this year, which does not mean a new version coming out this year.
It means you get the headlight, you get the LED light bar going around the cabin, so there'll be little spruiks like that, little extra bits.
Yeah, true too.
But they're just cosmetic. They really are. I mean, Pete, the thing is, for S and X to get steer-by-wire, it really needs to go 48 volts. Now, the only thing going for it, and Lars did say, eventually all models will go 48 volts. He did say that. So it's probably 50-50 for the S and X, because the S and X is now actually, sadly, a low volume car. They make 40,000 each year. Yeah, it's much. The sales have evaporated for S and X compared to what they used to be. They used to be 100,000 combined a few years ago, and now they're 40,000 a year, which is low volume, and might make it more likely to have.
Just on that comment on the design getting some more attention, I would argue that it's the engineer, the head engineer, saying the design. So, if it was Franz saying it, well, that might be more to do with aesthetics and etc. Whereas if it's the head engineer saying it, he might be referring to engineering design, which could encapsulate 48 volts steer-by-wire, rather than aesthetics. But, who knows?
Just to finish off that thing, I did find those two images just for completeness. That is the concrete block I'm talking about. It's not small. And oops, if I can get the image to change, that's what I could see through the windscreen. But notice how it just shows a little something small, but nothing to be worried about. It didn't color it orange or red as an object, and it was well prepared for me to drive through that concrete block, which would have not been great. So just like I said, edge case into the sun, but vision isn't everything, and no doubt a front camera would have fixed that, which it will on my new car. So hurry up, Tesla. Asking for a friend.
So
Just a couple of months.
just to clarify, Harold, I'm pretty sure you're not saying that vision isn't everything full stop. You're just saying vision isn't everything with the current camera set. Is that correct?
And everything has its limitation. So ultrasonics can't pick up everything, radar can't pick up everything, and vision can't pick up everything all the time. So there are limitations. So, just because your car doesn't say there's something there, if you know there's something there, you are obliged to use your car wisely. Please don't militantly go, well, my car said there was nothing there, so I drove anyway, because it should be Elon's fault if it does something unexpected.
Of course.
And there's always an edge case. So, LiDAR, I'm not even sure how LiDAR if that would have picked it up, but we're not in the LiDAR. LiDAR is not a thing for Tesla, and nor necessarily should it be, because, as Elon does say, conventional cars are driven around by a bag of meat that has two eyes on a swiveling gimbal, whereas, a Tesla has 6 or 7 cameras, that are dotted around the whole thing, looking simultaneously in every direction.
And the Tesla is not distracted by mobile phones. It's not hungover from the night before. It's not emotional because it's just broken up with its girlfriend. It's not trying to erase someone. It's not, under the influence of drugs or whatever. It's, it's fairly, it's a robot.
Exactly.
I caught Grok trying to chat mine up the other day.
That's actually, it's funny you mentioned Grok. That Grok 3 is pretty good.
It's good.
It's good, but it's got a propensity to make stuff up. I don't know if you've noticed that. So if you ask to bring up, so I've asked it to bring up X posts, for example, and it gives me, like, say, it said, oh yeah, there's, the account of Auto AUS News or something said this and this, and I'm like, okay, bringing up the URL to that post. Oh no, you can't do that. And then I went and tried to actually type in, and that account doesn't exist. And I'm like, you made this stuff up. And then it did another one where it made another one up. And then I asked it to, I asked it another question, and it said, oh, based on a recent report. And then I said, okay, give me the URL of this report, or give me the name of this report. And then it said, oh, there was no actual report. They were just, trending arguments to that effect. But apologies if I gave you the impression that there was an actual report. I'm like, well, he did say, according to a recent report. So
have you used Deep Thought? Have you used Deep Search?
I have, and so all I did is I asked it to just give me, since the Tesla's IPO, I asked it to give me a table of revenue versus price at the earnings date for each quarter, and geez, that was quite laborious, and it didn't, and the prices did not match up. So upon refining the commands, it did eventually give me the right prices, but only for like 2010 to 2012, and then it skipped 6 years, and then went 2010 or whatever to 20, and so then I said, look, give me the whole thing because you've missed some years. and then it just had the prices but had estimated next to each one. So yeah, I don't know. I've had mixed results. Sometimes it's been fantastic, much better than Grok 2, but other times it's been borderline and frustrating. So
interesting.
It's just you.
I mean, I won't be using Google
I've been
anymore.
quite fun with mine, and I use like Australian vernacular, and it seemed to switch and started replying like that as well. And I was like,
it's very good with language. I've noticed it's very much better language-wise.
Yeah, it was cool.
Mike, you use Google.
Well, because, so I'll give you the example. I've got a couple of technical hobbies, and over the space of a couple of years, probably 40 hours worth of time, I put together a whole bunch of information about what I wanted to do. And because it had come out and everybody was raving about it, I thought I'd see what Grok knew. And it was spot on. And instead of like 40 hours worth of Google searches over, a few nights, it was there in 15 minutes. And a bit like you said, though, Pete, I mean, you've got to ask it the right question at some time. So like at one point I said, give me a picture of XYZ. And it gave me this, computer generated sort of graphic. And I actually really meant, can you give me a diagram of this? So there's subtle stuff like that you've got to watch with it. But that's the same with Google, actually. But I find now I'm using the Grok 3 instead of Google because I find Google just insufficient these days for technical work that I get involved in. Well, it's more hobbies, I should say, but technical anyway.
When you ask questions that especially if you hit the deep search, I think
that's what I use. Yeah.
It's really good because it references the information. I just asked it. It was for a property developer and whether they used my product, just out of curiosity, and it thoroughly went and it said, "I'm going to search." It worked out who the developer was and that they were an Australian company and blah blah. And then it said, "Now I'm going to look for any website web references." So it looked through their websites and different projects and different buildings, and then it said, "I'm going to look for remote controls and I'm going to look for whatever." In the end, it couldn't find the information I wanted, so it confirmed it couldn't say whether they were using it or not. But it was very thorough and had all the links. So Pete, you could actually you could check. So I could click through and go, yeah, that is their website. So it wasn't making those up.
Yes. Yeah, in deep search, it doesn't seem to make stuff up, but it seems to confuse itself. So just through that simple table of Tesla's revenues and the share price on the earnings day, it said, okay, checking Yahoo Finance for stock prices. And then it went, checked another source because Yahoo Finance, it wasn't getting the data from. And I'm like, I went to Yahoo Finance. I went, there it is. The data's right there. It's actually quite simple to find. Why was it not able to find it? So, and the prices that it had. So I specifically asked for the closing price on the day the earnings results were announced. If you didn't have one, then get the closing price of the next trading day. So it was, it wasn't open to interpretation, but it still struggled. So, and took a very long time. I mean, just that whole, it would have been faster for me to do it. So it literally took 40 minutes or something.
In a busy time because I think many more people are using it now than they did last week. No,
this was about 3-4 days ago.
But I mean, certainly it's a great achievement, and the fact that XAI have only been running for the last 18 months or something, and the fact that they or developing Grok, that is, and the fact that they commissioned 100,000 H100 equivalents in 120 something days, and then they had them fully coherent, which was thought to be impossible beyond about 30,000 process GPUs. They then doubled it to 200,000 for a mere additional 92 or 93 days, which is just remarkable. And some of the things that Elon Musk said, they had to do is they had to rent 25% of America's portable refrigeration systems, like a quarter of the entire country's mobile plant.
That's insane.
You know, to cool this thing down. Then they had to use quite a few megapacks from Tesla. Thankfully, Elon knew who to ring to get a rush order, and you know, basically use them to cope with all the power fluctuations, because these things literally go from zero power usage to 100% in milliseconds, and sometimes back again, or oscillate. So yeah, it's impressive, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next, you know, his next, and only Elon can say these numbers. The next size he wants of Colossus is not 200,000, but 1 million processing units. And unfortunately, he had forgotten, and all his XAI employees weren't born when Back to the Future was made. So they didn't get the reference of 1.21 gigawatts, because what this new Colossus, when it's finally finished, will consume is about 1.25 gigawatts. So I'm sure Elon will make sure it actually consumes 1.21 to match with the movie reference. But it's just remarkable numbers. They're quite ridiculous, in fact. Anyway.
Is that price right in the chat, Pete?
Sorry?
Is that price right in the chat? Is that what you were looking for? I'm just guessing, but I just typed it into Grok.
No, I was looking for the closing price since the IPO in like 2010 for every quarter for each year.
Oh, okay,
so
righto.
4 prices for each year. So 4 times 14. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like and the revenues.
The graph, yeah.
So what was someone else saying just a moment ago before?
Oh, video. You were going to play a video, Harold.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about, you know, the safety of the cars. You know, sometimes the cameras can't sort of see things in different sensors. I mean, this video shows an interesting camera position. And if you know, you know, because this is the Cybertruck, and that's live.
Yes.
So this is actually a pretty good video. Let me just play it.
Safety is at the core of all Teslas, and Cybertruck's no exception.
Crash test executing in 3, 2, 1.
Today's test is the first Cybertruck crash test, and it's a 35 miles an hour full frontal, which is one of the most severe crash tests in the industry. So we have to make sure that we absorb the energy correctly and manage that acceleration so we can better protect occupants.
There's a lot of misconceptions that this big, ominous-looking vehicle is going to be unsafe for other road users. We designed it to have the crash structure way down low. It's not only in line with the center of gravity, but it's compatible with other vehicles on the road, which means it's a safer crash for everyone involved.
After the crash, we're going back, really making sure that our models match up with exactly the positioning of everything. And then with our simulations, we can see how the airbags are deploying, how the occupant is then interacting with these airbags.
We get that progressive crush, the motion of the tow hook first, and then the bumper as it crushes. And then the next thing we have is the casting.
The large casting in Cybertruck is performing in a different manner compared to your typical stamped steel structures. Typically, it'll bend into a 3-point bend and absorb energy, whereas with a casting, it's going to break off into very tiny, small pieces. And the smaller the pieces that it breaks up into, the more efficient your structure is. Today, we're in the crash test site for rollover testing. Make sure we get a lot of data on when it almost rolls versus when it actually rolls, so we can figure out what's the best time to deploy airbags to protect the occupants. We're doing 4 types of different rollovers. The first is a ramp rollover. Then next, a curb trip rollover, where you go laterally towards a curb. The next one is similar to the last one, except there's no curb, but it's a soil ditch. Finally, the last one is big ramp ditch, where you drive down at different speeds.
We test until failure, and we'll keep increasing the speed until we get a rollover.
So the first step is rollover prevention and design in such a way with a low center of gravity and good suspension systems. The second step is rollover protection, where the airbags and the structure of the truck come in. So if the truck were to roll over, we want to make sure that the cabin is protected and it can hold up its own weight, plus additional weight as well to protect the occupants in that case.
What this testing shows is that the overall design of Cybertruck is very robust. I've been impressed with the way the Cybertruck maintained its structural integrity during multiple different types of rollovers.
A typical gas pickup truck is carrying the weight in its body and its gas tank, which are both mounted pretty high in the vehicle. Majority of that mass is in the battery pack, which is down all the way on the floor. It's actually the floor of the vehicle. Cybertruck has lowest probability of injury and the lowest probability of rollover in any pickup truck on the market.
No one thought it'd be possible to build a tough truck that's also very safe, but at Tesla we don't stop until we meet our high level of safety.
Cybertruck's low center of gravity, exoskeleton, and advanced crash structure are what earn it that 5-star overall crash safety rating.
And I just want one. Hurry up. I'd almost be prepared to be a crash test dummy on a slow impact just to give it a go.
Glad you said almost.
Yeah, I'm not quite that desperate. But yeah, as usual. And that, I mean, that test was done quite a while ago because you could see Lars had more hair and it was a bit darker. But obviously NHTSA have brought out, oh no, sorry, it might have been NHTSA, yeah, they've brought out the test rating of 5 stars and I think it's 5 stars in every category, and it's the safest pickup truck, which is obvious because it's a Tesla.
But remember when it first came out and everyone's saying this is going to be so unsafe, this is going to be really bad for pedestrians, you know, it's got sharp edges, it's got this and blah, blah. And Tesla owners knew let's just see the evidence. Let's just wait for the crash tests because let's just give Tesla the benefit of the doubt. They don't tend to make unsafe vehicles. So let's just see what happens. And everyone who was doubting the safety of the Cybertruck seems to have gone quiet in the last week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mike has put up a smaller graph, not quite the one you wanted, Pete, but that's one of them, which is, I guess, is just the year-end share price and their annual revenue, which the revenue looks about right. It looks about.
I did the quarter one. It came up straight away, but I don't know whether it was correct or not, which is what Pete was saying. I mean, it produced the result, but is it correct?
I think the 2.39, I think that actually is correct. Could that be right? The same share price? That would be interesting to within a cent.
For sure.
But there you go.
Amazing world we live in.
All about the prompts, Pete. I think we're all going to become experts. There's probably going to be an AI that works out the correct prompt to feed the other AI. They can prompt each other. And I guess if you can do that, then it don't need us humans, and then it will be deleted.
No, Harold. We just need a Neuralink so it can just read our mind.
Yes, but if it could read our mind, and if it knew that if it gets too clever, we'll unplug it, then we're gone, and we won't be able to hide from the Neuralink. Yep. So,
but you're assuming that it will have that motive of self-preservation.
No.
Well, if it's super intelligent, it might figure it's important for the universe that its intelligence overrides everything else.
I mean, Grok's symbol
is other mind virus because we have minds.
Yeah, because Grok's symbol is the singularity.
Yes,
I was saying. So I was just sort of saying, it's coming sooner than what we think.
Either that or the false vacuum. Which, if that happens, it'll hit us at the speed of light and we'll never know.
Cool.
So, changing the subject to one of my favourite subjects, it's Rocket Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Although the link is not yet up on SpaceX's launch thingy, I don't think
No,
quite yet.
Was that for
not,
Starship?
well,
Yes.
they still
Yes.
haven't got official doco from FAA, I don't think yet. Apparently they'll get it, but it's not there yet because it is only Tuesday their time or whatever.
What's the weather looking like, Mike?
Okay. They're doing it later, 5:30 p.m. time theirs, and the Indian Ocean landing for the ship is not bad if you look at the isobars off the northwest.
Yes, but Mike, they were talking about possibly attempting to. Oh no, that's the one after.
That's the one after. That was Flight 9.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the repeat of Flight 7 because of the changes they made with the vacuum. Did you see their report on how it actually failed? They made a nice report on that they post. This is what I like about SpaceX. They're totally transparent generally.
Yeah, well, it's hard to hide the fact that you blew up your Starship because
yeah. Well, the old Blue Origin's first stage, it was an attempt, so all good, but they haven't said anything, right?
No, and I had to chuckle in tonight's news where there was an Australian physicist who become an astronaut on Jeff Bezos's phallus-shaped rocket.
It's a horrible shit. It's a
all,
horrible
all, all it can do is go straight up and straight down.
And it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. And it's
that's
not.
That's what that appendix. That's what that appendix generally does, Harold.
Yes.
It goes in that direction. Back and
settle
forth,
down.
up and down.
Can we redefine going into space as going into orbit? Because this is just getting a joke.
It is. Yeah, why not just get a slingshot or a cannon or
Sure,
it's,
whatever you want.
There's a few of them.
it's just not rocketry.
Well-
It's
Well, that is a method for trying to get some rockets up is to use the centrifugal force to overcome the first bit of.
well, there is one. It's literally a centrifuge, and then at the correct moment, it gets released, and it's doing orbital velocity at ground level.
And it hits the atmosphere very fast.
You ain't going to be riding on that one, I can tell you.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
The
of
only
course,
way,
2 moon landings coming up.
yes, which have
So
not statistically been very successful.
No, there's about 3 actually, but one's a bit later. So what is it? Intuitive Machines launched this week, I think, on a Falcon 9.
Yep.
The Blue Ghost marks the second landing. You've all probably seen the photos. I think the great comment was some younger person saying to his dad, why are they still using the black and white cameras like they did in the 60s? And Dad said, it's because the moon is grey.
That's right. There is no colour on the moon.
Yes. So that's exciting for me this next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so 7:30 start, hopefully, on Saturday morning. Yeah, it is good because with those Indian Ocean landings, they have to take off at such a time so that you can land in daylight, which for us is our daylight, thankfully, which is pretty cool.
Well, the recovery ships are on the way. If they're not there yet, but they're on the way. People check all this. If you follow X, you've seen all this, so you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting times. And speaking of SpaceX, of course, Lars did mention the Roadster, which I personally don't give a damn about, but mainly because Tesla's got to produce probably about 50 to 100 Roadsters for nothing for all of those referral prize winners who are just YouTubers and other. I was going to say other lowlifes, but I shouldn't be that harsh. But that's probably accurate. Dubious personalities, or certainly fulsome personalities, but he did reiterate that they are using cold gas thrusters, and it's just a crazy way of overcoming the limitations of electric motors.
Yes.
But we'll see. And Lars did say in the interview that he had actually had a meeting about the Roadster literally 2 days prior to the interview. So they are working on it, but I personally don't care. Never going to buy one, no matter how effluent I am. Yeah, it's just not happening. But it'll have steer by wire. So there you go. Go Roadster.
Hey, Harold, you never know. You might get a midlife crisis and buy one. Never say never.
That would be
It's a bit
cool.
late
if I
for
was
midlife.
really at my midlife, but I think I'm past midlife.
That's what I just said.
So I'm not going to live to 112. Then
End of
again,
life revelation.
many welfare recipients in the United States, apparently, like millions of them that are older than 112. So,
150 plus.
one's 300 and something.
Yeah, I know that bloke that's 356.
Right.
Yes, remarkable. God bless America, because it needs it. But enough of that. All right, we are nearly getting towards 9:30. Excuse me, 9:30, which is good because have we got any sort of final questions or comments before we ask Pete to wrap up this awesome show? Anything at all? We got the rocket coming? No, we're all good.
Just quickly, 5G on new Model Y, 5G modems on new Model Y, according to another test.
That's true. Yes, that is. However, I thought the statement was something along the lines of not all of the new Model Ys may get it, depending on availability at different factories. Because the way it was discovered, at this stage, because the way it was discovered was via Tesla's electronics parts catalog, which actually had the modem as being 5G and its specs and part number, obviously. So it might not look. It might be on our Australian new Model Ys, perhaps. Yeah, don't know. I guess we'll find out in a few months, which would be interesting. The other thing too, not so much Tesla, but certainly Elon Musk related and SpaceX related, was the fact that I was going to say the outgoing federal government, the current federal government, if they are re-elected, the Labor Party has promised to introduce legislation that extends the universal service obligation to all telcos to not just be landlines, but also to encompass all mobile phones, which guarantees actually something that Elon Musk has already promised. But anyway, it's going to guarantee that all mobile phones in Australia will be able to use Starlink, and they magnanimously claim other providers. Good luck with that. But
other low orbit satellite providers.
Yeah, for which there are currently none really, and none on the horizon yet. But in any case, guarantee that you'll be able to use your mobile to ring 000 anywhere in Australia. And I think that's for free as well. But I mean, Elon Musk has already basically stated that wherever possible, he doesn't want anyone dying because they haven't got the correct phone plan, and that he's promised that wherever it's legal, that you can have free access to emergency calls. But yeah, that's a great thing. And
can I just say to all those people who want to not buy a Tesla because they disagree with Elon Musk's politics, so are you also now not going to have a mobile phone because you disagree with Elon Musk's politics? Because Starlink is a lot closer to Elon Musk than Tesla is. I'm sure, he owns 12% of Tesla? How much does he own of SpaceX? A lot more than 12%. So good luck trying with Elon going forward.
Yes, if you're in the middle of the bush on an Elon detox program, you're probably closer to him there than anywhere else. But anyway, and the great thing is, there wasn't a mining. He wasn't an executive, but I think he was a mining business owner or an exploration business owner, saying it's a game changer out in the bush because they have to have. Yes, they've got Starlink in their vehicles, and as long as you're within Wi-Fi range, you then have full connectivity with your phone and all that sort of stuff. But he goes, for occupational safety and health and safety reasons, when someone goes out on a remote site away from the vehicle, they've got to have with them a GPS locator. They've got to have what do you call it? One of those panic doodads, the distress beacon, and they've got to have a sat phone, and they've got to carry this on them as they walk.
I take them up there all the time.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, working in iron ore mining up in the Pilbara, it's an absolute game changer.
Yeah. Well, if you can have direct to handset mobile communication, pretty much guaranteed, then really all you need is a mobile phone and a battery pack backup if you really want to be some braces.
So, Richard, would that do away with an EPIRB as well? Is that what?
EPIRBs. That's generally for C. But essentially, because when I take up we have to take up for safe working like a Garmin. Well, our one's a Garmin anyway. But you've always got a panic button on there that will connect to satellite. That's if you're going off of like our rail corridor. So, if you're going somewhere that isn't your sort of normal place of work. No, that's a good question, isn't it? I know our rules definitely haven't caught up to that yet because it's not kind of deployed. It's a good question as to whether it will. But look, even for like internet access at the camps, it's been a game changer already. So, really. And, I'm sure some of you around the room would have worked up there and, talking to your family every night is pretty much essential. So, if you've got crappy comms up there and you can't, which happens all the time, it's pretty average. So,
I remember in the dark ages being near the Argyle Diamond Mine. It was actually the Freeport Bow River Diamond Mine. And I had a phone call to my mother because I was only a student, and it was via a microwave link. And that was really, because it was over Christmas or just before Christmas, and thunderstorms and lightning and all that sort of stuff interferes with microwave links, and it was really patchy. And I saw a guy in Nanyatara a couple of laps ago. He was just a backpacker working there. He actually had his own Starlink for his donga.
Legend, yeah.
Because he just goes, it's just the best internet, and you just can't rely on whatever else is there.
It is until everyone gets one, and then your contention ratio in the middle of nowhere is now really high because that's happening too.
But then they'll put satellites up, so more bandwidth.
Yeah, there's a bit of a lag though.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, that's the last little bit of Tesla / Elon news. So
some good news.
The future is definitely rushing towards us at a great rate of knots, which.
And actually, Pete, I share exactly your sentiment. People have said to me, "Oh, are you?" It's actually some pretty funny jokes, but it's like, what? So, do your beliefs align with the CEO of every product that you buy? What about those clothes that you're standing in? Do you have you made sure that the CEO that oversaw the sweatshop that came from, that you're okay, that you're busy mates? It's just ridiculous.
And I love it when VW owners say that.
Literally the people's car.
Yeah. So, it's
all right. Before we get too deep into that,
anyway, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a pathway paved with controversy. So, and it's a slippery slope.
Only temporary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. 6 months' time, this shit will go. No, 12 months' time.
12 months' time. Yes, I do need.
I'll say 12.
Us to recover in 12 months, but that's only because I'm being selfish. Actually, 18 would be nice. Alrighty, Pete, how would you take out an awesome show like this as if we didn't already know?
Always stay safe, stay sustainable, and stay ahead of the curve.
And the best way to do that is buy a Tesla, join Aqua, anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. On that terrible outro, have a wonderful week, everyone, and I really do look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
I know.
Well done.
That's the second time it's stopped.